Tonight's program was supposed to be co-shared, but somebody disappeared on him. But the great man that he is, Bob got it all together, and he did it on his own. So we're going to do a program on growing up on Main Street. And Bob McKinnon is going to do the program. So. Said he didn't need a mic.
I don't need that mic. I'm intimidated. No, Kay French was supposed to help me on this, but later on she said she wasn't able to, and I thought, well, what I've got to say verbally wouldn't last very long, so it wouldn't be much of a program. So I kind of put together a slideshow that we'll show after I do this part of it. But anyway, I hope y'all enjoy it and we'll learn something. Okay, growing up in Erin during the 30s and 40s. I was born February the 5th, 1927, shortly after midnight in the old hospital, now where the Clarksville Academy now is. I was brought home to Erin on Main Street as soon as my mother released from the hospital. In those days, you know, they kept these women several days, and then when they went home, they had to stay in bed several days. I was the youngest of 3 children, born to Virgil Buren and Eva Sarah McKinnon. The first born in 1923 was Elizabeth Louise Betty, then Marjorie Eve in 1925. I had good relations with my sisters as we grew up. I had a happy childhood being raised in a small town with many friends to play with in the creek, the hills, the vacant lots, walking, making up games, shooting marbles, BB guns, playing cowboy and Indians, cops and robbers, kick the can, pop the whip, and playing combat using rubber guns. And the bands were made from old car inner tubes. Leroy Satterwhite was my best friend through all the years. Our parents never worried about us as long as we were home with supper around 5:30. Our day started early in the morning, except for a break for lunch. We went until supper. No TV then, thank goodness, but we listened to radio, only the Shadow Knows, Inner Sanctum, Fibbergy and Molly, Edgar Bergen, Charlie McCarthy, Red Skeleton, Jack Benny, the Thin Man, and the Lone Ranger, Little Over Nanny, and many others. Anybody as old as I am, you remember those. Front Street back, we call Main Street now, we call it, kids grew up, call it Front Street. And Back Street is where Walnut Street was the name of it, we call it Back Street. And we had a couple of gangs, not like the gangs have now, we'd kill each other. But the ones on Back Street were older than the ones on Front Street or Main Street. And so they pretty well kept us in tow. And we built cabins next door in the vacant lot to where I live now, above, behind the house. And Roland Roby, Webb Mitchum, and let's see who else was it. Oh, William Shuck. They were on Back Street with other boys. They were about 3 years older than we were. So anyway, they talked those kids into helping them build a cabin up in a pig lot, which was behind Roland's house. Back then, pigs running all over town. In fact, I got the name for an alley. I'm going to tell you what it is. So they got everything, had an opening night. Oh, I mean, they had a big shindig. They wouldn't even let us in. They locked the door. We had worked up there and built that thing, helped them build and get everything set up. So anyway, it was all right. But we swam in this creek over here because back then there were 2 or 3 pretty large holes of water. One was right over here across the railroad, we called it Blacksmith Hole, and that hole of water was probably, I don't know, it was probably 8 feet deep anyway. And then there was one on up the creek, we called it Bell's Hole, and these holes held pretty good sized fish. In fact, I remember Mr. Nels Christensen, who he liked to fish, and he was fishing with grasshoppers. He caught a 5-pound bass out of one of those holes of water. So there were fish in these holes of water. In the summer, a friend and I, we walked the railroad all the way down to what we call Spencer's Hole to go swimming. It's right across now from, let's see what I'm trying to say.
Jamie Fazell. Jamie.
Yeah.
Jamie Fazell.
Yeah, Jamie Fazell. We'd walk the railroad up down there, barefooted, And it was 100 degrees, didn't matter, feet were tough. We'd walk those rails as hard as it was. We'd walk on those rocks. I could walk on broken glass. But anyway, we walked everywhere we went. During the summer, my friend and I walked Wales Creek fishing. We'd start in down where Town Branch goes into Wales Creek. We'd walk and wade the creek all the way down to Third Bridge. And my dad would pick us up in the evening and get us home to town for supper. We'd do that day after day when he would be coming to visit us. But, and we caught quite a few fish back then too. Somehow or other, I don't know why they called them trout, but they weren't trout, they were little smallmouth bass. But we caught a lot of fish, had a lot of fun. And the largest, as I remember, was about a 5-pound bass, and we'd been trying to catch that thing for I don't know how long. It was at First Bridge. We could see the fish, and I got up on the bridge one day, and I was pointing to him, and that night we'd set up and painted the river run, painted that thing black with yellow eyes. So I'd point that fish out to him, he'd throw it over and wind that fish and drove it to it. He teased that fish for about 10 minutes, find that fish, grabbed hold of it. And it weighed about 5 pounds. It was a nice thing. But there was good fish in that creek too. Our hunting and fishing together lasted for about 75 years. We saw each other during the summer and winter duck hunting, fishing, except for the time I was in the Navy. And then when I got out, he went into the Navy, so there was a period of time there we didn't get together. But we fished. Our last fishing was on Kentucky Lake in 2012, and that was the sunset of our fishing time. We never got together again. His health got poor. Anyway, now when the carnivals came to town, they always had these girly shows. We called them hooch coochie. My friend and I, we were too young to get in. Now you can see more on TV, and out on the street, these women show more now than they did then. Girls were more modest back then. And Miss Hattie Atchison lived next door to where the bank is now. The house is torn down, I guess, for the Regions Bank, whatever bank it is now. Not Regions. What bank is it?
You live next door to telephone company.
Well, one of the, in there anyway. But she had a granddaughter that would come visit her in the summer. And I was probably, I don't know, 12, 13 years old. But she was a pretty little girl. But I couldn't even get anywhere close to her. I couldn't even get the front porch swinging privileges with her. Now, I was working at a store making $5 a week at the Clegger's Grocery down on the corner where Bales is now. So I saved up about $4 or $5, and a carnival had come to town. She agreed to go to the carnival meeting. You know, I was rich, boy, I was wealthy, had a lot of money. We had a good time till money run out, and then she dumped me for Albert Mitchell Christian. And I was that night, I forget you. Another time a carnival came to town, and the feature was to wrestle a bear and win some money. It was a black bear, muzzled and declawed. If you could stay in the ring a certain amount of time, they'd give you some money. I mean, you know, $3 or $4, a lot of money back then. The bear was trained upon command, you know, to fall down and somebody fall up. But just before I got on there, Albert Mitchell Christian, I'll forget, he threw the bear down. Of course, the bear gave up and just fell. So he won $5, believe it. I said, oh boy, I can do that. I got in there, that bear threw me down, got on top of me, and like it smothered me to death. It smelled so bad I couldn't hardly stand it. I didn't know. Oh, terrible, that was terrible. I'll never forget that. I was holding my breath anyway. So that's the only time I ever wrestled a bear. Now we had movies in the old gymnasium that they tore down, was next door to us over there. Until 1946, there was a Mr. Fish. He opened the Erin Theater downtown. And before then, the movies were shown in the old gymnasium, and it cost about kids 10, 15 cents for a ticket. And they had some pretty good movies back in those days, too. Until they built the theater, then it was in town. Our favorite treats were Coke and peanuts dipped into RC or Coca-Cola. Moon pies, Eskimo pie, ice cream on a stick, candy bar. All of them cost them a nickel. Nickels were hard to come by. I usually treats like those mentioned maybe once a week. Okay, when I grew up, you know, of course, they still have the tooth fairy, but when I grew up, he was poor. 25 cents was the going rate for a tooth back then. But now, he's pretty wealthy. Some of these kids get $5, $10 for a tooth. When I became large enough to push one of these reel mowers, we'd do a yard for 25 cents. Some of the larger yards, I mean, maybe a half acre, well, we got 50 cents for mowing them. And we used on the live lead to cut weeds, made a little money doing that. I never had an allowance. In fact, I don't know if kids ever had one. When we grew up, we didn't have allowances. We worked for whatever we got, you know, either around the house doing things or working out and doing what I did, mowing yards and stuff. I don't believe I ever came to my parents for any money. And I don't think any kid did. A haircut was 25 cents, and Bob Pulley was the barber, and my dad would give me 25 cents to go get a haircut, and Bob Pulley would always give you a nickel back. He'd say, "What's a haircut cost that day?" 25 cents and a nickel back. A trip on a train to Clark's was about 25 cents for a kid. The L&M Railroad at that time ran, I guess, 6 passenger trains, somewhere in that neighborhood, up to 10 freight trains. All were steam engines, in the late 1950s when the diesel engine took over. The railroad through here ceased operations about 1984, I believe it was. 124 years of service. Sad ending. At times I still remember their huffing and puffing going up the Tennessee Ridge. When I was about 12 years old, I had a dog named Popeye, a fox terrier. Popeye was born under the house next door to where we lived. The house, that's the house that's since been torn down next door to where we live. All the puppies were named after Popeye comic strip characters. Wimpy, Popeye, Sweet Pea, Olive Oil, and those names. One day, he was a constant companion of mine. One day, while crossing the street, he followed me and a passing car killed him. I was heartbroken. My pappy dad took Popeye to the hill engine and cremated him in the firebox. Back then, that was a crematory for animals. They always kept a fire in that firebox, so they had to push these trains over up and down the hill. And so that's what they did with animals. So the day that they put my dog in there, I figured my dog helped push the train over the hill. 1933, I started my first grade at elementary school, my first year of 8. My mother being a second grade teacher, I was in her class. The first day I tried to see what I could get by with, and she spanked me. Not that I deserved it, but she spanked me in front of the whole class. I was a good boy from then on. I played basketball all the way up to the 8th grade, I guess. 1939, joined the Boy Scouts as a tenderfoot. Every Boy Scout needs a flashlight. My father ran an account at the Highway Harbor, and that's where what's the station? What's it up there now at Highway Harbor? Chamber of Commerce, and that was wide open in there. There was a service station there. We were run by Lori Hart. Okay. So one day I was by there. I just joined the Scouts, and I needed a flashlight. So I saw that flashlight, and I made a mistake. It cost 50 cents complete with batteries. I told Mr. Hart, my dad said it was okay to let me have the flashlight. Put it on his account, he'd pay at the end of the month like everybody charged everything, groceries, they'd have it to pay at the end of the account. Not thinking, which is dumb, he went through all the tickets for every purchase made during the previous month. When he saw the flashlight on him, he said he didn't know anything about a flashlight, and went to Lord Hart and said, "I ain't buying a flashlight." So he told him I got it, you know. So anyway, I had to work that out. I worked for at least 2 weeks, pumping gas, checking oil, cleaning windshields, and restroom to pay off that 50 cents. I worked, I still would have been working there, but back then they had running boards, and I was washing the windshield, and I had my hand you know, and they're like it's water, and the doors open, somebody slammed the door on my fingers, and that's when I quit. So that wound up my service station career. Okay, that's learning that hard knock, school of hard knock. We had a area known as Kentucky, and the restaurant owned a track cafe across the street. And where it got the name Kentucky, I don't know. Betty seems to think that it named that because booze is pretty flowed. It flowed pretty good over that Saturday. And it was legal in Kentucky, so they called that Kentucky over there. There was a restaurant known as the Track Cafe and a blacksmith shop located across Railroad. As a kid Saturday, I would sit in my dad's office window. He had an office right over the Kid Mitchell's hardware store down. There was an office up there with a big window. On Saturday, it was like Wild West over there. As moonshine was plentiful and many old farm hands came to partake of it. Up in the morning, it got rough with fights breaking out. Eric Rosher and his sidekick, Owen Beecham. Anybody remember them? Y'all all young people. These names. But they would go and arrest the troublemakers. They would handcuff them and walk them up the hill to the jail. They didn't have a car, they didn't have a bicycle, they didn't have nothing. They walked everybody. One time I remember they had two of them handcuffed. They couldn't take one at a time. And they took that guy's hands and handcuffed him around a telephone pole and came back and got him and took him. All right, now, there's another thing. I remember this guy, he was a painter. I don't call his name, something that be kin to him, I don't. But he got his throat cut from ear to ear. I mean, just like it. He walked with a bunch of people following behind him. I was right in with that crowd following to the doctor's office. Somebody gave him a cigarette. He took a puff of it and inhaled it and came out his throat. It wasn't a month later, he was back over fighting again. I mean, he's a tough guy. But it's just like a Wild West over there on Saturday. Okay. Now, our Boy Scout troop, we had a good active troop. We had about, I don't know, 22, 25 members in our troop then. And when I reached the rank of Boy Scout, Erin and his brother were leaders. They were called perfect role models. During the war, we collected scrap metal, paper, and anything that would go toward the war effort. Back then, it was a nice park, the whole city block where the library is now and the pizza joint. It was the whole block was open there, beautiful park. It had a fountain in the middle, and from each north, south, east, west, there was a path or a road pathway. We went to that the center where there was a fountain, and there was a beautiful hedge all the way around it, and they kept it trimmed to look real nice. So I hate it that it's not there today. But anyway, this is where we had our Boy Scout cabin that Mr. Nels Christensen, who was owned a well material company, he gave us all the material to build this cabin. So we built us a nice cabin over there and had our meetings. Inside there we had a big thing where we crushed, not crushed, but packed paper in big bundles for the war effort. So we cut scrap metal and everything we keep that would go for the war effort. Up until World War II, the country was in a deep depression. The year I graduated, but from the 8th grade and entered high school, I played basketball through my senior year, never won any awards, mostly won the bench. During the war years, we didn't have any games away hardly because the gas was rationed, and when we did get a chance to go somewhere to play, people would pool their coupons and we'd go in private automobiles. The buses weren't even, they didn't run anything on the bus back then. Okay. Many male teachers were drafted into the military. I made up down those steps for 12 years, mostly 3 times a day. I didn't make an honor roll, but back then, we would go to Waverly. Teenagers, well, somebody having access to an automobile occasionally, we talk about when we were 16, 17 years old, enough to get out and do some things. Someone had access to all of them. We were no longer restricted to Erin for entertainment. We'd go to Waverly, where on Highway 70, there were several catfish places all up and down the road. Old Wynn's was one of them, I remember that. I could get all you could eat for $1, and that included a drink. After eating, we all, as many, sometimes 8 or 10 couples, we'd go to this honky-tonk called King's. So we'd dance, but all of us had to be home, you know, about 12:30 anyway, 1 o'clock. And after that, my dad would be up after me. So, and then we also attend dances at the Dunbar Cave. The big bands played there. Tommy Dorsey, Jimmy Dorsey, Ben Miller, all of them came in there and played. We'd go to those dances at Dunbar Cave. And one played there was Owen Bradley. Well, he was a local Nashville. And he was Dottie Dillard and Snooky Lanson were the singers. Snooky Lanson went to New York and became a big name on nationwide television, the show called The Hit Parade. Anybody all remember that? Huh? Y'all bunch of young folks. Anyway, in 1944, I joined the Navy. I quit high school midway through my senior year. And I joined the Navy with Beck Aldbrooks, I've told you. Beck Aldbrooks and Jeff Davis, who was the preacher's son, Cecil Hangley, and myself. Because we were afraid that the war would be over before we got to do our duty. That's the way kids thought. And another thing, I didn't want to be drafted anyway. Because when the National Guard was activated, they formed a State Guard. Well, the State Guard, we had, I guess, probably 90 or so members, and most of them were made up of the World War I veterans, old men, and those who were 4F that couldn't make it in the service, and you're too young to go in. Well, I joined when I was 16 years old, and during that time, I became a sergeant, of all things, in charge of a machine gun squad, and we actually had 45 caliber Thompson submachine guns. We'd go out somewhere in the woods and just shoot at trees and then went out and killed somebody. But anyway, after the war was over, well, they disbanded the State Guard. But I always said, if we were the last line of defense and they got through the first line, this country was in a heck of a shape. I don't think it would last long. But anyway, that was a real experience. Well, we went to Forest, Camp Forest, out in Tullahoma. And we went through the training just like it was, you know, boot camp or whatever they call it, basic training for the Army. It rained the whole week we were over, I guess. We wallowed in that mud. And not only that, I remember going into the gas chamber, whether you had your gas pack and your gas mask in the pack, you had to get up and put it on. Well, mine leaked. Oh man, I tell you what, that's terrible. So I said right then and there, I'm going to join the Navy. I might, you know, drown, sharks hit me or something. As long as I'm there, I'm going to have me a place to sleep and something good to eat. So Ms. Lori Marable was our in charge of the draft board. Every time she'd see me, it'll be long, I'm going to get you. I said, you're not going to get me. So after I came back, after serving the Navy, I came back home on July the 9th, 1946. She was one of the first I ever saw. I said, you didn't get me, did you? So anyway, that was my end of my Navy career. I spent in the Navy. And that pretty well covers my childhood. And I grew up in Erin at a time when, you know, nobody worried about you. We ran through the hood, woods and the hills and had fun everywhere we went, played in the creeks. And, you know, our parents never worried about us. We, like I say, we'd leave early morning, home, got back at lunch, all right, and going again. Of course, we didn't have these things now, thank God, that they've got now. I'm glad I didn't grow up this time when they had all this stuff these kids play with now. Because many of them, they're not going to know how to communicate with anybody. They're not going to know how to, I don't know what they're going to do when they get out and get the real world. Some of these little kids now, they're 4 or 5 years old, got those things. And to me, I don't think that's the right thing. But anyway, that's about growing up in Erin. Now, I've got, because I thought this was gonna be kind of a short thing, my verbal part, and being that I didn't get any help on this, I thought, well, I'll put some pictures together. We'll have a slideshow, some scenes in here that I picked out in the 30s and 40s, mid-40s. Some of them might not be too good quality, but you got to keep in mind, those pictures over 100 years old. Yes, ma'am.
I have a question, if you don't mind. I'm just curious, did y'all ever have like bicycles or scooters or any toys of
Oh,
any
yeah,
kind?
I'll show you. First picture I'll show you. We skated, had skates, and when it first built the sidewalks, in front of the big house where Mitchum's lived, I'm talking about the other side of my house.
Right.
The sidewalk went up that hill. Now it's level with the street, but it went up that hill, and you could start skating up that hill. And the sidewalks were new then. They weren't all torn up where they put meters, because they didn't have running water, so there were no water meters in it. You could start skating up there and coast all the way to town. But bicycles, yeah, we had bicycles and things like that before that. But someone, I thought, stole mine one time, but he didn't, just borrowed it. And so he told me where I could find it. Anyway,
Bob,
I hope, yes, sir.
do you remember where the Erin city limits began when you were, that time period you were talking about?
Well, it was probably, they call it Midway.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
that's down there about the other side of the what's the name of the church?
St. Luke's.
Colored church.
Yeah.
What name of the Methodist? Is it the Methodist church down
St.
there?
Luke's.
St. Luke's, well, anyway, that's about where the city limits is, right there.
And at the
There's
bridge?
here in Arlington.
Yeah, yeah. So we had Arlington then, called it Midway and then Arlington, but the city limits was
And on this end? At the
probably
bridge?
down there just about the crossroads, somewhere in that area. Well, maybe not that far down. Yeah. Anyway. What's that do? When we do this,
I grew up in McKinnon, and I understand McKinnon was named for your father.
my great-great-grandfather.
Okay, and I was just wondering how it was you didn't grow up in McKinnon and grew up in Erin.
No, I didn't grow up in McKinnon. I grew up in here all my life. Yeah. Yeah, it was named after my great-great-grandfather. He built a country store there in 1888, and they put the post office there, and they named it McKinnon. But before it was McKinnon, even on the old Civil War maps, the place was called Gravel Pit. Really, that's right. And then when they put the post office in there, and he was the postmaster, they changed it to McKinnon. That's how it got his name.
When did your family move to Erin?
My family moved here.
When?
Well, most of them were from the time my great-great-great-grandfather came from Scotland through North Carolina to Magnolia, and how he knew about Magnolia. But he bought 215 acres of land for $450. That's a lot of money. They didn't pay cash for it. So the McKinnons were in that area, McKinnon, in that McKinnon area, and New Hope, for until about 1895. And then they all moved into Erin. And most of them were Presbyterians down in New Hope. They went to that church. In fact, I have a uncle, a great uncle I used to be, that was instrumental in forming that church back in 1850. And so they came to town, came to join, most of them joined the Methodist Church. So we've got membership in the Methodist Church go back to 1895, I guess. Well, I had one, I'll tell you a story about him. He's my great-grandfather. He was really involved in the church down in New Hope, and his home was up on top of that hill, just this side, the other side of the Coolidge Bridge, before you get to go to church. That's where my grandfather was born, up on that hill. But anyway, he was involved in that Presbyterian church. He came here and joined the Methodist church. He was a Methodist for a while, and then he became a Nazarene. And he donated the land for the church that where it is now. They've got have a big stained glass window in there in his honor. So he touched all bases. If it hadn't been, I guess it had a Catholic church, he might have been a Catholic, I don't know. Anyway, he wasn't taking a chance. No,
Hey, Bobby,
so
I thought you were talking about the change in times. I asked my dad one time after y'all joined the Navy, I said, well, y'all didn't go to school the last half of the year. I said, how did you have to go back and make that up? And he said, no, they just counted the present. Is that right?
no, we were either too smart and then have to go back and they didn't want to put up with it. No, so we got a diploma.
That's
But
what he said.
it was one or the other. I don't know whether it was too smart.
They wouldn't do that
They
now,
didn't go back.
but he said, the principal just counted as
Yeah,
present.
that's right.
But Bob and Dan, one of my older brothers was drafted while he was a senior at the high school and did return to continue and got his diploma after he returned. And Betty tells a story about him being the bus driver that drove the whole class to Gatlinburg for their senior trip. Frank?
Yeah, but during the war, there wasn't such thing as senior trip. In fact, we didn't get to go anywhere because gas was rationed, and so was tires, everything was rationed.
We went to Brown's Camp while you all were in the Navy.
Huh?
We went to Brown's Camp for our senior trip.
Yeah, we went on White Oak.
Don't dance around.
Yeah, somebody had enough gas to get there.
Picked us up afterwards.
We went to Brown's Camp too, but we got to go to Gatlinburg during our senior year. Here, Cheryl. Cheryl, I got your seat here. Cheryl, I got your seat right here.
Go ahead, I'm gonna sit here and get my phone. So, Donald's gonna operate the machine up there, and this first picture, somebody needs to dim the light and leave enough light where I can see
Can you see there, boss?
what I'm doing here. Okay, that first picture, Main Street, about 1910. And that's when they were just building the sidewalks. And the sidewalks then just went to about where Boone Street is now. But if you'll notice on the left, the first house there was the house that we had to tear down in that vacant lot now. And the next house was our house, which was built in 1892. So the sidewalks were built and the street, pretty bad shape. Well, as I remember when I was a kid, I mean, the streets weren't much better than that then. And they didn't have, of course, back then, they didn't have running water. And people just, I don't know what they did with it. They had outdoor privies, but then when they got running water, they had septic tanks. Most of them overflowed and ran down the ditches. I mean, there was raw sewage running down these ditches beside the road. And until the highway was rebuilt, and like it is today, you had to park your car off in the dirt over there beside the road. And finally, you know, we got modern and the state built a decent highway through town. But back then, that's the way it looked, and you could see that courthouse way down at the end and a horse and a buggy. Well, back then, wasn't many automobiles, a lot of horses, and a lot of sparrows. You know what? Why sparrows? So many sparrows? They liked what the horses did. Now we don't have horses.
What year was the sidewalks put in?
About 1910, somewhere along there.
It's College Street.
On College Street. There's some people say, and I've read where it was originally was Market Street. In fact, I've got some old deeds where McKinnon bought some property, bought some lots, and it said on Market Street. And then it became College Street because there was a college up there where Sissy and Roland's house is now, and the dormitories up there. So it became College Street, and then later on, through the years, it became Main Street. But that's the way it looked back then, and you know, we were real primitive then, back like a third world country, if we get right down to it. The next picture was the old hotel. Now, it's not there at last. It was moved from that location there, which is, I guess, down there about where the pizza place is now, somewhere in that area. Of course, the depot stayed there until they tore it down in whatever time, 1985 or 5. But they say that hotel whether it's true or not, I don't know, was moved over on Main Street with one mule. They put that thing on rollers and one mule. Now, I don't know whether it's true or not, but that's what I've heard. So that's the way the old hotel used to be. It was a real busy place. Okay, the next picture we see is, okay, the post office was on this end of the building, Clegger's grocery was on the other end. Now this is going pretty far back, and that sign, you can't see it, but the speed limit then was 12 miles an hour. That overhead sign, we didn't have traffic lights then, but there wasn't many automobiles anyway. I guess a horse wasn't there, a buggy wasn't to do over 12 miles an hour. Now, I tell you, I wish that they would strip all that stuff off that building now back to the original blocks, because those are beautiful sculpture blocks, and they were made here in Erin that built that building. Okay, the next, okay, there's Waller Brush Line. Yeah, that's right. Anyway, that's a bus line that had, I guess this one went to Dover, and that way the other one probably will make trips to Clarksville back. But that's going way back to the 30s. Okay, number 5, be the next one. Okay, that's my next 4 neighbors. That's me. Well, back in the back, that's my sister Betty holding Gay Satterwhite, who's a little girl. And then Marjorie is back behind Jerry Satterwhite. Leroy's in the middle, and I'm on the left. But that picture was made, oh, I don't know, back in the early 30s. Okay, next picture. Now, see, some of these pictures really aren't good, but that's the best that come up. There's John Hussey. He was a barber here and there, and he was 100% pure Irish. He was an Irish. And people debate on who that is he's shaving, and I say it's Josh Littleton. Looks just like him. And whether it is or not, I don't know. But anyway, he had a barber shop. His barber shop is right across from where the library is now. Okay. Next one. Okay, there's Bob Pulley. He had a barber shop that was up there. Oh, let's see, where was it? I can't.
Back right here behind Mark Blue's office.
Yeah, behind Mark Gill's office. Anyway, that date on that calendar up there, somewhere in 1930, I believe it is. But anyway, he's the barber that would give you a haircut, charge you a quarter, and give you a nickel back. So kids always went to him. See, no, I don't know where it was in that building. Anyway, the next one is, we were kids, there were chestnut trees all over this area. I mean, large trees. Chestnuts were plentiful. We used to go out on Sunday afternoon with our tow sacks and gather up chestnuts. The boy on the left there is Albert Mitchum Christian, and Margaret Mitchum Simpson is the next little girl there. And my sister Betty is in the middle. Bobby, that's me. And then Margie, my other sister. But we used to go out and pick up those chestnuts on weekends. You remember that, Margaret? You do? Oh, I'm glad somebody's old enough to remember these things besides me. Okay, next picture. Okay, Moonshine Steel. I tell you, everything went on in town. I was around somewhere to see it. But anyway, they'd go raid these steels and bring them in town, take pictures. So, you know, Sheriff John Hussey, he's in that picture. Bill Spencer, Bill Spencer is, no, wait a minute.
Bill's right there behind George.
Yeah, well, okay, I'm reading from the wrong side here, so. Okay, Bill Spencer, the little kid that was behind, I mean, in front row. Yeah, okay. Yeah, Joanne Cherry, she's in that picture. George Adams, the little kid who lives across the street from me. Bob McKinnon, I'm standing there in the front row, I guess. Owen Beecham, he was a sidekick for Eric Rosser. He was his deputy, you want to call him. And Eric Rosser, he was the town marshal. Mr. Nichols and Joe Spencer, and there's also Pat Connell in there beside Joe Spencer on the end.
What's the house for?
The house up there is the bed and breakfast that it was. But that house is built by the Rossers, right? Again?
Yes.
So that picture would have been in the courthouse lawn up on the east side?
Yeah, I was in the courthouse, the old courthouse lawn, that's right. But every time something went on in town, I was around. I got more pictures of me hanging around there doing things.
Was your dad taking these pictures?
No, I don't think he took those. But
It's the little.
I'll tell you a little story about this moonshine. They raided one of these stills and they had some evidence in gallon jugs. Well, we had a furniture store in here, and I'm going to tell you who it is, might hurt somebody's feelings. But anyway, they put it
It's all
up.
right.
They put
Believe in the truth.
they put the evidence up over his store, which is, I don't know, 3 or 4 gallons of moonshine. And when they had the trial and they went to get the evidence, it was gone. I mean, there's several men around here like to, in the evening to have a little toddy or something, and they drank it, all of them drinking, there wasn't anything left for evidence. That's supposed to be a true story.
Is the little kid in the front row, is he wearing one of those pilot caps or what kind of?
Oh, yeah, everybody had one of those. Aviator cap? Oh, yeah. Yeah, the goggles, aviator cap on it. And another thing I had to wear, which I hated, was doggone knickers. Corduroy knickers, you walk and go. Well, you couldn't sneak up on anybody. Okay, now, the next picture is a good one. My dad and Bill Shelton. Bill Shelton was principal of high school, and my dad was clowning around. Erin had a radio station. It was named ERIN. And the man that had that station, Fluky Harris, he built a radio station, and it reached out around 15-mile radius. And he got to where it was interfering with Grand Ole Opry and WSM, and FCC came down and shut it down. But my sister, Margaret, sang on that radio station. Huh? Yeah. So anyway, they was lay that pistol down, baby. All right. Next picture, City Park. Okay, it's a shame we don't have that park now. But in the center of that park was a beautiful fountain. Now that fountain, of course, I wish it was in color, because it's made up of a lot of this slag from all these old iron furnaces, different color. It was dark blue, light blue, green, and other rocks too. But it was a beautiful thing, and it was right in the center of the park. And I wish we still had that park downtown, but it covered the whole city block. And that's the picture of that young lady is Artias. Aritas. Yeah, Aritas Elliott. Okay, next one. Okay.
Oh, Cat Lane.
Cat Lane. He was the foreman of the railroad gang, and they were clearing the right of way and all this and other. Well, they burned the right of way, and it caught the bridge on fire. So he lost his job because of that. Now, if they hadn't burned that bridge, that old wooden bridge, we'd still have it right there today. We wouldn't have a concrete bridge, probably.
Elsie was born in Cat Lane's house.
Okay, next picture. Okay, there's a group of Erin Elementary School teachers, 1937. On the front row is my mother, Miss Eve McKinnon, on the left. Earlene Nance Lyle, Mary Elizabeth Hegler Brigham, Agnes Wynn Hegler. Second row is Lorraine Powers, Flora Rachi Skate, Kathleen Rosher, she was my second grade teacher. Bradley was her last name, yeah.
Second grade, you would have.
I mean, third grade students. Oh, for one anyway. Jeannie Ruth Stokes, and then Martha McCauley. Dorothy McCauley, yeah, that picture made in 1937. And the third back row was Louise Wright Littleton, Coach Brownlow Sharp, David Halliburton, Elizabeth Adams. Okay.
You need to put that picture in our back.
Yeah, you can do that. Okay. Anyway, back then, every one of these teachers had big, large classes. My mother, I've got a picture of her, and there were 35 students in her class. Now these teachers complain, which is good reason, I guess, because they don't have the discipline they used to have then. But she had 35 kids in her class, and They all learned, when they got out of school, they had cursive writing, and they had a good education out of the second grade. But they didn't have any discipline problems, and 35 really, could handle them. But nowadays, you got 15 in class, well, probably got problems.
Is that the school in the back there?
Uh-huh, yeah, that's the old school. Okay, next one. All right, here's Erin High School basketball team, 1939. All right, we're going to start at the left side and go up. Billy Uffelman, Albert Christensen, Philip Campbell, Thomas Macaulay, L.B. Mara, and Ira Biggs. Ira Biggs just passed away not long ago, probably 6 months ago, something like that. Okay, in the middle is Coach Brownlow Sharp, Roland Roby holding the ball. Okay, on the right side, from the bottom up, is Wayne Richardson, Jack Christensen, Maurice Hangline, Homer Johnson, Billy Joe Browning, Henry L. Uffelman, Tom Buford Christensen. Okay, in that picture right there, there's only one person still alive, and that's Wayne Richardson. They're all right there deceased. Okay. All right. Next picture, the Track Cafe. Now that was over in Kentucky. But I don't know who owned that originally, but I know that yeah. They call him Puss Hegler, operated that thing for years. And I'll never forget, I had skipped church, I guess it was, that Sunday, December the 7th, 1941. A bunch of us kids were over there when we got the word about Pearl Harbor. I'll never forget that. At that restaurant right there. Okay, next one. That's Powell's Grocery. It hung over the hill, the bluff. You know, where, anybody know where the old waterworks is? Or used to be. It's still there. That's about where it was. It was on the front of the street, but the back end of it was over the hill. During recess, we could run down that hill. You had 15, 20 minutes, whatever it was, and you could buy a Coke or a candy bar for a nickel and run back up those steps. And we did that, up down those steps so many times. There was not such thing as an obese child then. I mean, really, it just wasn't a thing. We got too much exercise. And those steps running down those things for 12 years, sometimes 2 and 3 times a day or more sometimes. Okay. Now that's Cleggan's Grocery. That picture's made in 1948, but really it looked like that for years, and that's where I worked when I was a kid. I went to work there when I was 12 years old, and worked probably part of the time when I was 13. And at long hours, that store would open at 6 o'clock in the morning. I wouldn't be there maybe at 7, but if there was somebody hanging around at 7 o'clock, it's still open. So I kept stock and I kept the meat. I probably, he had a humongous, I think they still got that big meat block. And I take a wire brush and brush that thing. I bet I brushed a half inch off that thing over time. Anyway, the people in that, let's see, well, it's hard to see exactly who it is. There's my mother and little Bill Shuff and Stella Cleggan and,
Miss Davis.
huh?
Miss Davis.
Yeah, Babe Davis, he was a railroad station agent, Miss Davis. So, and there's one man I cannot identify, somebody I wish I could, and somebody can. The man on the left, off to himself. I know him, but I could not tell you what his name is, saved my life. Anyway.
But was it not self-serve? Did you go in and you gave an order and they got it for you?
Oh, that's what I did. The people would, well, they also delivered grocers too. But people would come in with a list and you'd go around and gather it all up and put it on the counter and write it all up and put it in the charge account, and it had a big thing you put the charge. Everybody paid at the end of the month. Yeah, sure did. Okay, next one. Okay, this was taken down at what we call, I guess, Smith's Field. Usually that's where the carnivals used to come down in that field, and they were having some kind of something down there. But anyway, they had an elephant, and that picture was taken there. My mother's on the left, Miss Eve McKinnon, Bertha Ray Beasley, and Irma Allsbrooks. Now, who the children are, I do not know.
That's down there where Houston County Tire.
Well, down there, yeah, where Houston County Tire is located now, that's where it was taken. Okay. Does anybody know who the children are? Okay, next one. Okay, Fraulein Beauty Shop. Now, Fraulein, year for years, was the only beautician in this town. Now there must be at least a dozen. Of course, then, a lot of women use that old curlers and what's that stuff they put on their hair, it smells so bad. Perm, yeah, oh, it smells terrible. But anyway, one beauty shop is all we had in that town then. Now I don't know how many there are, at least a dozen. Okay, next one. All right, there's a good picture. Now, back then, they'd load up the kids and carry them to the swimming hole, but the driver, that's Miss Ruth Mitchum driving, and standing there's Mr. Carlisle Mitchum, and back in the truck is Margaret with the first one, back over the truck, Joanne Cherry, Ann Huzzy, Louis Satterwhite, Barbara Mitchum, Bitsy Roby, Al Mitchum, and then one so far out of the picture, I don't know who it is, unknown. But they used to take us to the creek and load up a truck. Wouldn't dare do that nowadays. So, you know, if someone's turning, they'd be waiting for you to have an accident or sue somebody. Okay.
Granddaddy called that hat a pith hat.
Yeah. Okay, the next one. Okay, our Boy Scout troop, we had a real nice troop. Beverly Price was on the left, Cecily, his brother, to the right. And they kept a lot of us boys from going to jail probably, because they were real good Scout masters. And they took us on camping trips. We're getting ready to go on one there. Now the first row, a lot of y'all probably won't know these names, but some of you might. On the first row there is Billy Stewart. Now Margaret know him.
Cousin.
Billy Joe Browning, Russell Parchman, Jeff Davis, Scroochie Browning, and little George Adams on the ground. Second row, Scoutmaster Beverly Price, Erin Kingsmill, Donald Miller, Bobby McKinnon, Bill Spencer, Billy Lynn Skeleton, Bennett Satterwhite, James Pee Wee Parchman, and Scoutmaster Cecil Price. Now, we were the only scout troop that ever went anywhere and had a cook. Pee Wee Parchman there, he was our cook. Now, ain't that something? Go out and camp and you got a cook for you. Anyway, it hadn't been many years ago till somebody knocked on the door, and it was Pee Wee. Hadn't seen him in years and years and years. Somehow, well, I'm in California, and he was back in Erin, and he knocked on my door. Oh, if we didn't have some time to talk over. Yeah, okay. On the back row was Albert Christensen, and the truck driver was Gilbert Claxton. He drove us a truck. We'd load up a truck on and haul all his kids around. Everett Stewart, and there's one there unidentified. I don't know who that is. And Carl Ross, John Wilson Bracci, Wayne Richardson, George Baxter, he was a preacher's son, and Lawrence McMillan. You know Lawrence McMillan?
My oldest brother.
Yeah. Okay, next picture. All right, there we are, loaded up on a truck, heading for, we're somewhere down on White Oak. Now, can you imagine somebody doing that today? I mean, you know, somebody be just waiting for somebody to fall off the truck and get hurt and get them a lawyer and sue somebody. But anyway, they used to do the same thing. There was a guy down on White Oak, his name was Bailey Traylor. He had no truck, and he'd carry us down to the creek, down to White Oak from here, and charge you about 10, 15 cents round trip. Okay, so there's the Boy Scouts. Next picture. Erin High School boys, 1940. Okay, you can't read that, but I can tell you what it says. On the left side, from the bottom to the top, there's L.R. Miller, Pat McCarty, Gary Dillon, Henry Neal Upland, Roland Roby. In the center, Coach Brownlow Sharp and Chick Wright. But Chick Wright, he may be the only one still around. I don't know, we'll see him maybe. On the right side is Albert Taylor, Bill Bell, Otis Outlaw, Skipper Lockhart, and William Shove. All of them served in the armed forces during war, every one of them during World War II. Otis Outlaw, he was killed in action. Now, I don't think out of that whole bunch is any of them survived.
Oh, Chick's. What was Chick's job?
Chick Wright, excuse me, I said that, yeah.
What
Okay.
was his job?
Mop the floor.
Oh, he was just a mascot, I guess. I don't know.
What you call a manager, they mop the floor.
Bobby, is that movie posters on the wall?
Oh, yeah, yeah. That's where they had the movies, and they had some pretty good movies. Okay, next one, that's the Erin girls basketball team, 1940. Okay, from the bottom to top on the left, there's Ann Spencer Rye, Shirley Parker, Jessie Lockhart Riley, Marjorie McKinnon, Betty McKinnon, Nuki Powers, Eugenia Sissy Knight. In the center, Coach Brownlow Sharp, Maxine Neighbors, and Angela Benson. On the right, from the bottom to the top, Dorothy Ross, Joey Roby, Margaret Bell, Jewel Sykes, Frances Horner, Geraldine Hegler, and Peggy Webb. Now that bunch, I don't know how many survived. I know that there's three probably that I know of are still survivors. That's my two sisters and Joey Roby. And I don't know about the rest of them. I really don't. I know most of them are probably gone.
Geraldine. Geraldine.
Geraldine, okay. Okay, I thought she was gone. Okay. All right. Okay. Next picture. There's the Wiseman Violets.
Basketball team.
Now, I don't know where he got that name, but anyway, I could have named it something else out of the Violets, I believe. Okay. On the back row is Jess Mallory. We know who he is. There you go. Huh? They sitting up there know who he is. Yeah, he's that tall one. Okay, and then it was O.S. Uffelman, Roe Nichols, Cecily Price, and Dusty Shelton. Now, there wasn't on the back row. On the middle row, or is it the middle row? Be the front row. Boots Knight. Oh,
No, that's not, you're on the wrong picture.
wait a minute. Wiseman Violence, what you got typed up. Anyway. I don't know. We got them wrong.
The plaid suit is Hugh Dixon.
No, that's the wrong picture.
Is the one
That's
with
Wiseman Violence, that's the only picture I got. Anyway, we know who some of them are.
Parkland Bledsoe, looks like Parkland Bledsoe. Front row.
There is, you guys must have another picture, because we were evidence in one of them.
Yeah, well, I haven't seen it. Anyway, we got the wrong picture with the wrong
We have two of the
identification.
five.
Okay. The next picture is Erin Elementary School boys basketball team, 1940. On the left is Billy Stewart and then little Bobby McKinnon, Bernard McElwain, Russell Parchman, and Jeff Davis. Oh, hey, that was a real team there. Okay, next picture. We got the Erin Elementary School girls basketball team, 1940. Coach Tilden Richardson, Dorothy Lee Knight, Dolores Mobley, Margaret Ruth Mitchum, Mary Smith, Bitsy Roby, and Virginia Griffin. You knew who they were, don't you, Margaret? Okay, next picture. Okay, back then, we had some fancy automobiles. I mean, you know, and that was one of them. Got old enough to have a car. But we're probably going to Clarksville, I guess. They load up everybody on the car. It's probably about rumble seat full. But the boy standing with his leg upon, or foot upon the fender, was Billy Lynn Skeleton. And the guy back on the backside, just see his head, that's Webb Mitchum. And the driver's Clyde Cook. And then Ralph Roby is on the far side in the rumble seat. Bobby McKinnon and A.B. Connell. So it's a wonder we made it there back, but we used, that's about, I was a fancy automobile back then. I believe the door must have been made out of wood or something, looked like. Okay, next one. Okay, back during the war, they had these drives, war bond drives, and there's Joanne Cherry and Maida Roby Cook. They were out there selling war bonds or trying to get people to buy. Of course, they had, kids would buy these books and they would pay 10 cents for a stamp. When you got enough of them, $18, you could cash them in for a bond. And when you cashed the bond in, whatever how many years it was worth $25. Okay, next. Okay. A lot of people just called him Pete Freed, but his name was Claxton.
Yeah.
He lost his legs, like a lot of people did, the men did, or boys did, back during when the railroad, they'd hop these freight trains, and he lost both of his legs. But he became a city employee. He was a street, he kept the streets clean, but that's what he did. Now, there were several of these people around here that had peg legs. I mean, that hop these freight trains back during that Depression. The coal cars would come through here, and those gondolas, and they would be heated up. Well, if a train would stop in here for the hill engine, they'd get up on those cars and they'd kick the coal off on the right of way, and then it'd come back and pick it up with the tow sacks, we call them in, whatever you want to call them. And that's the way they did it. And then, believe it or not, when they started having these refrigerator cars, they'd get down there somehow or another and get some of the ice out of the refrigerator cars. But anyway, that's how he lost his legs. And they took him to Nashville to have him some, what do you call them, artificial leg fitted for him. He would not wear them. So this is the way he had those tires. His legs cut off right below his knees, and he walked around on those tires. He had a wife who looked like she was 6'9" feet tall. Anyway, that's Pete Freed Claxton. Okay, next picture. Okay, that may be hard to see, but back then we didn't have a lounge or anything. That was a boys' restroom and smoking parlor. And sometimes down there it would look like the woods were on fire. They all go down there during recess and smoke. You know, back then you smoked. We started smoking about 14, 15 years old. I probably started at 15 years old, and we're playing basketball. We couldn't wait until the game was over to go have a cigarette. So that was, the girls had one on the other side of the hill. I don't know whether they smoked down. I guess they smoked too. Everybody smoked then. Everybody in the movie, it's real funny now to see an old movie. It's strange to see everybody smoking. But back then, everybody smoked. Okay, the next one. Okay, there's the State Guard. There's 4 members of the State Guard. Mr. Carlisle Mitchum, he was a captain. Of course, he was in World War I. Lieutenant Homer Carey, Sergeant Bill Lynn Skelton, no Sergeant Bobby McKinnon. Oh boy. Last line of defense, that's right. Okay. Anyway, we used to perform in the gymnasium before basketball games, show out some, and somebody, if it didn't holler about face at the right time, you'd run into the wall. Or they'd come all the right face, half of them would go left, half of them right. It was a real show. All right, next one. All right, there's the company, Tennessee Guard, State Guard Company. And Mr. Carlisle Mitchum, the commander, he was on the left there, I know him, and then Homer Carey, I believe, next one. But some of them I can identify in there, some of them I can't. But I'm back in there somewhere. But that was our company. Now, I also had a company down around Stewart, somewhere down around in the western part of the county. I believe it was Stewart. They probably had about 40 members in that company, but this one right here was a company that was made up, and they're all, like I say, either old men that were in World War I, or people that are 4F and couldn't get in the service, or kids too young. And that was the makeup of the State Guard. So that ends my program, folks. That's it. I hope y'all learned something. Pay attention. Yeah.
Thank you, Bob.